Does God hear the prayers of the unrighteous? This question is the cause of much strife and seems to be a hotbed of controversy on the outer fringes of Christianity in today's society. First of all, why does this question even matter? Those who don't believe in God certainly are not going to be praying to Him, right? I mean, he that cometh to God must first believe that He is before they can believe that He does things like answering prayers. Hebrews 11:6. But without faith it is impossible to please Him. For he that cometh to God must believe that He is, and that He's a rewarder of them that diligently seek Him. It takes faith to believe in God. It takes faith to come to God in prayer. It takes faith to expect that same God you have faith in is a God who hears and answers prayer. Go with me to the book of John, chapter 9, verse 31. Now we know that God heareth not sinners, but if any man be a worshipper of God and doeth His will, him He heareth. In this passage, a blind man had been healed, and the naysayers were trying to attribute the work of Christ to the devil. The blind man who could now see asserted that if Christ were not of God, then he could do nothing. But since he was from God, he could do miracles. The man emphatically stated that God heareth not sinners. Does God have a hearing problem when it comes to sinners? One thing we need to understand concerning this is that God hears and sees all that happens on the earth and in the universe, for that matter. He's all-knowing, omniscient, meaning He's everywhere at all times. So there isn't a word uttered in the universe that He isn't privy to. Having said that, the question we really need to answer is, what does the phrase God heareth not sinners actually mean? A brief look at the Greek lexicon sheds some light on this subject. Heareth is the Greek word akou, means to attend to, consider what is or has been said. It is a sound doctrine taught all through the Bible that God gives special consideration to His own. He did it in the Old Testament. Noah found grace in the eyes of God, and his family was spared from the flood. Elijah mocked the false prophets who prayed all day long while nothing happened. Elijah prayed once, and God answered him without delay. Another example is found in the book of Job, chapter 42. Therefore take unto you now 7 bullocks and 7 rams, and go to my servant Job, and offer up for yourselves a burnt offering. And my servant Job shall pray for you. For him will I accept, lest I deal with you after your folly, in that ye have not spoken of me that thing which is right, like my servant Job. In this passage, God instructed Job's so-called friends to have Job pray for them because he refused to answer their prayer. Since they didn't have a correct understanding of God and spoke things which were not right or unrighteous about Him, He refused to answer their prayer and even suggested retribution towards them if they prayed anything about the matter. You see, God is strict with those who have rejected His way and go about seeking their own way instead of the way of God. The way of God is narrow, it's exclusive, it is the only way. Those who attempt to find a way other than God's way are not heard and in some cases dealt with according to their folly. The problem began in the book of Genesis when Adam and Eve rebelled against God. Eve was deceived and desired to be wise, falling into Satan's trap of going her own way instead of going the way of God. Till that moment, man could talk to God face to face. Man enjoyed close fellowship with God, much like a father and a son do today. As a result of the fall into sin, all of mankind was plunged into a world of death, sickness, and disease. The perfect, intimate fellowship that man had with God was broken instantly, completely, and irrevocably. The only solution was Christ dying on the cross as a sinless, perfect man who was born of a virgin, resurrected, and taken up into heaven to intercede for the souls of men. It was his dying on the cross that reconciled us unto God. Jesus is the solution to the sin problem. He's man's only way to God. He reconciles us to God through his shed blood on Calvary's cross. As a result, God sees the believer through the righteousness of Christ, not through his own flawed efforts to be righteous. Consequently, God hears or responds to the believer and answers his prayer. God also rejects man's efforts to make his own way. Sometimes the unbeliever cries out to a God they do not know, hoping in desperation for an answer to their problems. God has no obligation whatsoever to answer this prayer. That's not a prayer of faith. It's a prayer of desperation. Man is foolish to think that he can live his own life, sin all he wants, and then when things get tough, call upon God to deliver him out of his folly. This is the man God will not hear. Not only will God not answer this kind of prayer, he even scoffs at it. Go to Proverbs chapter 1, verse 24. Because I have called and ye refused, I have stretched out my hand and no man regarded. But ye have set at naught all of my counsel and would none of my reproof. I also will laugh at your calamity. I will mock when your fear cometh. When your fear cometh as desolation, and your destruction cometh as a whirlwind, when distress and anguish cometh upon you, then shall they call upon me, but I will not answer. So, does God hear the prayers of the unrighteous? Of course he hears them, but he doesn't respond to the prayers of sinners, unless it's a prayer of repentance asking for salvation. God has no obligation whatsoever to answer the prayers of those who have willfully rejected him.